The PHC Zebras defeated Boulevard Blazers on Saturday night 2-0. Yesterday it was Dandytown and North Village drawing 2-2 at Bernard Park. Over at BAA, Robin Hood defeated the Somerset Trojans 8-1. It was 1-1 down at Garrison with Crossroads and Somerset Eagles. And then Southampton Rangers went down 3-2 to the Devonshire Cougars. In First Division play on Saturday, Hamilton Parish defeated Flanagan's Onions 2-1. And yesterday, St. George's defeated St. David's 1-0. And Vasco defeated the Devonshire Colts 2-1. So that was the lineup of football. So we have a packed show for you this afternoon. Again, we're waiting on the arrival of Kamal Evans, the president of Netball. She should be in shortly. But if you do have any questions or comments, you can give us a call at 292-9595. We'll open the lines up early enough for you to get your calls in, get your comments in about sports over the weekend and what we're looking forward to in the very near future. We have an event coming up at the end of October where the PGA golf will take place. We also have the Bermuda national cricket team getting ready to jet off to compete in Dubai. We have obviously Bermuda playing Mexico in their next game of the Nations Cup, and that's going to be in Bermuda on October the 11th. So we look forward to quite a few things happening in the sports world internationally. We still have domestically local football going on. We still have the karting season is getting ready to start very shortly. We have, of course, harness racing gets ready to take place in Bermuda. So there's quite a bit to get into in the very near future, and we'll bring it to you when we can. What we're going to do, we'll take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little more, and then we'll get the president of the Netball Association, Kamal Evans, in studio. We'll be back.
She outside?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Oh, okay.
She's 12. She's 12:30.
Oh.
We'll return after the break. At Argus, we're on a mission to empower more people to do.
Once you do August, once you get in, just take your
August is coming.
Right. Just take a break in between the.
Yeah. Okay, call for the commercial. Okay, cool.
Develop programs to support the physical and financial wellness of our customers and our community, because we believe it's smarter to help people avoid risks, not just recover from them, because we believe that's the right thing to do. At Argus, our interest goes beyond the bottom line, because our interest is you.
We're excited about a new service we now offer through partnership with Drop It Delivery, the brainchild of young local entrepreneurs with years of international experience in high-end catering. Drop It, in the words of its founders, is Lindo's Family Foods work online. And that about sums it up. Just go to dropit.pm for details and check out the testimonials and special offers and the beautifully formulated compendium of the products in store, which Drop It says are always chosen by experts, dropped it with care. Lindo's, why anyplace else?
Calling all players. What time is it? It's game time. Fun and dependable sports betting on NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, golf, horses, English Premier League, and more. Weekly promotions, instant win games. Be a lucky loser with our weekly draw. Become a game time player. Call into one of our 3 locations in Somerset, Town, or St. George's. For more details, visit gametime.pm or call 296-3222. Game Time. You play, we pay. Game Time is associated with responsible gaming establishment.
Premier Health is a
You need more time at any time?
Oh, okay.
Let me know.
You're automatically connected to 1 million U.S. network providers, 24/7 worldwide support, and more local
Well,
providers.
hopefully she usually calls in here, right?
If someone lets you in, she'll come straight in. She'll come straight in the.
Delays and costs.
So more of your premium goes towards generous benefits.
Premier Health.
Let me,
Smart health insurance feels good.
Call Colonial on 296-3200
Or visit cgigroup.com.
Police Gymkhana, 10 a.m. to 3
Let
p.m.
me just
Saturday,
go outside to see if
October 5th at
she's,
Police Field in Prospect.
I'm early.
Children ages 4 and up welcome. A bicycle helmet is required. Applications are available at BermudaPolice.pm. Late registration available. For more information, contact Sergeant Clifford Roberts on 717-0590 or Inspector Shakisha Miners on 717-2088. Police Gymkhana, Saturday, October 5th.
We are the voices.
You are with the captain.
It's Mr. Midday, 12 New Major News, Big Station.
The morning show.
The number one song.
The Faces.
You're watching Bermuda Tonight.
This is exactly what you're talking about. What an upset it was.
The Storytellers.
They are actually using the pepper spray.
Police are aware of this theory.
The water is 3,500 meters deep.
The tax climbed up to 12.5%.
The window on our community.
We bring you the best in U.S. television entertainment.
And the greatest sporting events in the world.
Oh, you won't get no complaints today.
Pardon?
They won't get no complaints today. I won't get no complaints today.
TV channel.
Get you on time. See that?
I heard you.
Early.
I heard you. Trust me. I was trying to get somebody to join me.
And
It's supposed to be potentially, but what do you think?
they'll call you maybe or text you.
Hi, I'm Bruce.
Okay, with 27 seconds.
Be sure to tune in at 8:20 every Wednesday morning right here on Power 95 for Welch's Wednesday. I'll let you know where I am so that you can stop by and get a free Welch's juice at the Wednesday edition of the Royal Gazette. It's Welch's Wednesday. Every Wednesday right here on Power 95. 95.
You've had your coaching clinic. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, your referee clinic. I'm sorry, your referee.
It was
You've had your.
technical officials and umpire
Mhm.
training that took place this weekend.
How was that attended?
It was very well attended.
Yeah.
One of the most exciting things was to see the youth out. We had players that had been a part of the under 21 national team as well as the under 16 team that attended both sessions. So I think it bodes well for us as the Bermuda Netball Association. We continue to speak on trying to build from the youth up. And I think that, they're showing that they're invested in the sport. And I think it bodes well for us for sure.
No, there's damage at the park.
Yes.
What is the latest as far as having your season maybe not start on time, push games, senior games back because they do daylight saving time. They will start in the evening. So what has been the latest talk as far as, especially the senior league? I know you would want the youth league to start on time because it's in the daytime.
Yes. Well, as a council, we were extremely proactive and made the decision to push the league back to November 2nd. When Humberto came and wreaked havoc down there at the park, which is currently still closed. So, clubs have had to try and secure other venues because we utilize that facility, obviously for not just our matches, but our clubs utilize it for their training. So, we've pushed that both leagues because obviously we were going to be having both leagues open at the same time, both the junior and the senior. So it's been pushed back to November 2nd, which gives teams, a little bit more time to prepare and get themselves ready for the opening.
Yeah. I had a look over there. It doesn't. I see a lot of stuff been pushed to the side. With talks with Youth and Sport, when will the construction of lights and all the bit get started, because that's the most important thing.
Well, a great thing was that our lights wasn't affected. It was more the so-called the lights that you see down. It's just a matter of making sure it's not a health and safety risk for our affiliates and our members. So they're doing a good job. I mean, considering that, that's not the only area that they have to attend to. Youth Sport and Recreation have been doing their part in trying to make sure that the courts are ready. They've assured us that they should be up and running this week. So hopefully, fingers crossed, tomorrow, clubs can resume their regular training schedules. And we'll just have to go from there. It's unfortunate, these things that happen, but we've definitely as a team been in communication. One of them is Bermuda College, because we also had our NAPO Fever,
Yes.
which took place this weekend, and we've had a venue change, and that's going to be located going forward at Bermuda College for the next couple of weeks. So rain, blow, or shine, the young ones will be able to attend there. So it's just a matter of us, trying to secure some other alternative venues. But we definitely encourage our clubs to try and reach out to, whether it be schools, or try to organize other training areas for them, so that once the opening is up and running, that they're ready to go.
I know Bernard Park is probably the venue of choice only because you got the two courts. It kind of shortens the day.
Yes.
Even though it's a long day, it kind of shortens the day because you're able to have multiple games. Revert to a gym, because a lot of people would say, well, why don't you just use a gym? But if you revert to the gym, you almost double your time because only one match can be played at a time.
Well, we will be doubling the time, or we will be limiting the amount of play time. So, it's a tough call. It's
Right.
definitely a tough call. But, we are continuously looking to try and secure indoor venues, whether it be as rain venues or whatever the case may be. And then those particular matches will then have to be shortened in order for us to allow for us.
Any thought of, because I know when basketball is played, when the younger ones are playing, they kind of play half court.
Yeah.
They turn the court the other way, kind of thing. And they play crossways. If need be, would a weekend end up like that for the young ones? If there's rain, just to make sure that they still play. If you can get a gym early enough to relocate.
Yeah, well, we'll continuously be in talks with Bermuda College. I know that they're really looking to try and get some more activity up there, utilizing the gym. I know basketball definitely has a lot of use up there in the gym. And that facility in particular is probably big enough for us to have two small courts side by side for the younger players. So it's definitely something that we could consider. We would, have to ask them if they can allow for us to at least get some, two small courts maybe lined out,
Right.
and then take our junior players up there, which is what we done this weekend. And that way we can still have those matches, and we can continue to develop our youngsters.
Now, I know you were talking about trying to get players into the school system to help out the coaches or the teachers,
Yes.
To kind of highlight the sport. Where are we as far as that?
Well, I mean, individual PE teachers or physical education teachers can always reach out to us if they're looking for assistance. I know that we do have one of our under 21 players that will be assisting a teacher this year. We were just encouraging them. We've been advised when the netball league kicks off, we will be providing them with a manual. And if they need further assistance, if we can somehow get someone to be able to help them that might be located in that area. See, unfortunately, what happens is with the schools is that their extracurriculars start when school ends, and some of our players that can assist us is at Bermuda College. Some may be working and things of that nature. So we'll do our best to be extremely accommodating and try to assist where we can. We've also encouraged some schools to maybe come down and take part in a training to observe, or to let their players be a part of a training day with teams. So we're definitely trying to encourage from all different avenues and all different aspects to try and continue to build the sport.
Any thought maybe of working with the Bermuda School Sports Federation? I know a lot of people may not want their kid or their youngster out at about 5 o'clock, but if Bernard Park was the centrally located place for netball to be played, having not a school tournament but school matches there, because you could have multiple games going on. So primary school use it one day.
Well, that actually happens now.
Right.
That happens now, and we do have a relationship, but the relationship right now goes as far as us providing assistance with umpires.
Right.
When they have their matches, as well as when they have, more so when they have their tournaments.
Yes. Yeah.
I know that I have always assisted the schools personally myself, as well as a few others, that when it comes to their matches, which are organized mostly by the teachers,
right,
through the School Sports Federation. More so they're in charge of the tournaments.
Yes.
So like I said, it's just a matter of building those relationships. We've opened ourselves up, more than opened ourselves up, to the schools to try to assist. And when they reach out, we put it out to the masses. Is there anybody that can go and assist in this area? Because it's not just a one person thing, it's not a one club thing, it's as an association. I think we all have to try and do our part.
Right. Did you share your time between the youth event and the technical course?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't. I was more in the technical, because what happened is that the technical course was from 9 to 3 p.m.
Right.
That was really, really intense. We'll definitely look to bring them down again.
Right.
And we're trying to get some of our people within Bermuda internationally accredited to be technical officials. It's a huge part of the game, and it's definitely a part that we've been missing. I knew it would get a little bit of resistance from our members and our affiliates, but I think that it will give a lot more accurate statistics and things like that coaches. So while initially be a few teething pains, and we're going to be looking to every week those that attended try and get together, maybe look at some matches online, and be able to technically score those, and compare our notes and things like that. So we're definitely looking to try and move forward. We've constantly spoken about hosting an international tournament here in Bermuda. It will be a lot less on our pockets if we have locally accredited persons that can, fill those roles. We're definitely progressing. We're definitely looking ahead to try and continue to build this.
What was eye opening for you during this course?
The eye-opening part about it, I mean, we've always scored and we've done it our way. But if anybody has scored in a cricket match of that, with dots and slash boxes and all sorts of things, it's very similar to that.
Oh, okay.
It's very similar to that. So it's just a matter of getting used to it. When something's new, people definitely always put up resistance.
Right.
But I think there was a good bunch, and they can appreciate it. And it looks like, it's going to be a really good thing for us.
Right. Well, let's take a commercial break, and we'll be back and talk more about netball, the upcoming season, and of course this past weekend with the youngsters and the technical course that went on. We'll be back after this message from our sponsors.
Back to Inside Sports Talk Radio. Inside Sports Talk Radio on Power 95 FM with host Ian Rollins and co-host Earl Mason.
And welcome back to Inside Sports Talk Radio. We'll continue our conversation with the president of Bermuda Netball Association, Camille Evans. So you had two locations that you were operating out of. Obviously, the technical event was at Cedar Bridge, but when we look at what the aim of this, the coaching and the technical course was, the aim is to improve knowledge of just about everyone, through refereeing, through coaching, through how do you look to continue that message, continue that way, and making sure that everybody gets the same information and it's no argument about the information that's given, kind of thing, because we need that consistency, wouldn't you?
We definitely need that consistency, and I constantly say it's about development. It's about developing not just the youngsters for a love of the sport, but it's about developing us as an organization and as a country. I feel that once we have a better understanding of what technical aspects it takes in order for us to be at the higher level, we can only grow. If we're doing things in the same manner that are being done internationally, then it just becomes a norm, and it feeds into our clubs, it feeds into us as an overall association. So if we can get everyone, on the same page, everyone is understanding what it takes from the technical aspect of things, then we can only develop and grow from there.
When you look at the ages of people that want to get more involved in sport, does that kind of encourage you that the sport has longevity in Bermuda? Because the younger you get them started in officiating, not just playing,
Exactly.
Does that keep them going in the sport?
I think it really bodes well. I can say for sure that when I was 13, 14, and 15, I was definitely not involved as an umpire from that perspective. So it's encouraging. It's very encouraging for us as an association. It means that we have a group of girls, between the ages of maybe 13 to about 21 that are really and truly invested in the sport. So for us, I think it means that we're doing something right. I think that we're doing many things right. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think that if we continue along this vein, we're going to continuously just soar.
Back in the day, netball was a big thing on a Sunday morning.
Yes, it was. I played on a Sunday.
Now you're shaking your head. But how do we we'll never get back to that. I mean but how it had fallen off for a while, and now we're gradually getting back to, we never stopped playing, but it was like it was a drop off. How much did that damage what you're trying to fix today? That lull in play and moving to the Saturday, and how much did that affect what you guys are up against today?
What truly affected it was the amount of teams that we had. We had the benefit of having at least maybe 8 teams that played on a Saturday, and then another 8 or 10 teams, and these are senior teams we're speaking on. So it was similar to how the football leagues operate, whereas you had teams that were in the second division, and you had the first division, and the first division teams, those are the teams that played on Sundays, and you were like chomping at the bit because you wanted to get in that team, and you wanted to play on a Sunday. So it made for a more competitive environment. And so for us, I feel that we are getting back to being a bit more competitive while having to adjust. I don't know if we'll ever be able to get back, at least in my time, to having matches basically played on a Saturday and a Sunday and having 2 divisions. What we can do is just try to continue to give different tournaments, different aspects. It might mean that we can, have a tournament on a Sunday versus, so we'll have netball for an entire weekend. So we can have matches played on Saturdays, and then we can have a tournament on Sundays.
Well, with the Fast Five, that kind of opens it up where you can have mixed teams for a Fast Five.
Exactly. So, we don't want to overwhelm everyone.
Yes.
We definitely strategically try and do things in bits and pieces and gradual. Bermudians, like we say it all the time, they're very resistant to change.
Don't like change.
But I think that if they see it and they start to feed into it and they start to feel it, and we continuously improve, and especially on the international stage, and they see that we're starting to have rewards, and we're winning, we are definitely competitive, I can say for a fact, within our region. And believe it or not, from administrative perspective, and we're leaps and bounds ahead of several people within our region. So it means that we are doing something right, and we are going to continue to push to try and evolve, to re-evolve the sport, I should say, or reignite the sport. So I mean, look out for some really interesting things to come forward. This year, I'm pretty excited because we have a bunch of ladies that are on our council that are really and truly invested in the sport, and I think that all hands are on, like we're just speeding forward and we're just getting things done.
2 weeks ago, we suffered a hurricane. Was it 2 weeks ago? Yeah.
Yeah.
But weeks before that, Bahamas suffered a hurricane. Have you been in touch with to see how, if anybody from netball has been affected? I know for a fact that there were a few sailors because Bermuda's participating in the Optimist Championship going on now, and a few of the sailors' houses were damaged. They were all okay, but they pretty much lost just about everything. So have you had any contact with anyone in Bahamas from the netball, because you're all a family?
Yes.
From this region anyway.
Yes.
So.
Well, we have a group chat, AFNA region presidents, and we have a group chat, and we talk constantly. We talk every day, so we're constantly checking in on each other. We definitely checked in, and they checked in on us.
Right.
To make sure that we were okay and no one was affected. And Bahamas is still trying to build their sport.
Right.
They currently don't have an active league as per se. So they said that they were fine. Those that are looking to try and build it, they said that they were fine, and they appreciated us reaching out, and we reached out as an association of the AFNA regional association, collectively.
Where are you as far as those talks with AFNA? As we sit in the middle of the Atlantic, and it's expensive for us to do every and anything, especially off island. Where are we as far as them doing what kind of CONCACAF has done, what the ICC has done with their sports, and making sure that the countries, everybody plays on a level playing field as far as, because finance plays the biggest part, and obviously there's going to, anybody in this region is going to need a lot of money to either put on a tournament or travel to a tournament. So how are they speaking with the governing body overall to ensure that there's level playing field for the entire netball community worldwide, as opposed to just those bigger nations?
Well, Marva Bernard is the president of the AFNA Association. She was previously the president of Jamaica Netball and has been heavily involved in netball, I think, all her life. She is looking to implement some really interesting things as a collective. The AFNA region has definitely opened itself up. How we were able to get our technical official training and umpire training done this weekend was like, we're looking to do like a buddy system. So basically the USA Netball Association, they have many accredited persons. That's only a hop away. So we were able to, through us even going to them through tournaments and things like that, we've been able to build those relationships. So we can get somebody to come down that's willing to help to progress the sport without it being a surmountable expense. So we're definitely trying to hold those relationships dear. So between USA and Canada, because those are the closest regions for us, we're definitely reaching out to them, utilizing their resources, trying to pool together and looking to put things on. Marva has also, and her committee, had put together a high school tournament. We want to get them involved in international competition young. I give major props to them because they amended the rule structure so that Bermuda can now become involved. Obviously, we spoke on that before, where it was really hard because you needed to have all those persons coming from one school.
Yeah.
So they've made amendments to the rules and regulations for that. So I think that everybody is just trying to adjust and trying to accommodate in order for the sport to grow. It just can't be cut and dry anymore.
Are they looking to have that annually or biannually, or how are they looking to have
Well,
that?
they've had it for the past 2 years, and they're
Okay.
looking to have it annually.
Oh, okay.
And now with the adjustment, it's definitely something that we can look to encourage. Get involved with the ESSF and basically see if we can get maybe pick a group of players out of that all-star pool, from the different schools, and so it's so many different things that can happen. I mean, we want to do them all, and
Right.
just poof, everything is just in place, but it doesn't
We're growing the
happen
money
like
tree
that.
somewhere down the
We're
road.
definitely going to grow the money tree, but the hardest thing obviously is the financial aspect of it, and trying to work within the constraints of what we have within our budget in order for us to do these things.
If you had a chance to encourage the former players to come out, especially for the first weekend, here's an opportunity for you to reach out to those people who used to play the game, loved it, played on Sundays, played on Saturdays. Here's your opportunity to encourage them to come out to see what the sport is now. Have a good.
Well, I know that we did have some players that came out and assisted with our NAPO fever,
Okay.
which was great. Some older players, and I've always said with the PV League, get involved, bring your grandbabies, bring them down, bring your grandkids, bring your nieces, your nephews, and come and get involved. Become a mentor. There might be just a player that may resemble you or make you think about you when you were there. And I think that it's exciting times for us. And I don't want anybody to lose out because, the train's not stopping, the train's going. So, while it's time and it's moving a little bit slow, you might be able to hop on board.
Well, what we're going to do, we're going to take another commercial break and come back and speak some more just before the news with Camille Evans, the president of the Bermuda Netball Association. We'll be back.
Radio, Inside Sports Talk Radio, on Power 95 FM, with host Ian Rollins and co-host Earl Baster.
And welcome back to Inside Sports Talk Radio on this Monday, September the 30th, the final day of the month. It's been a long month, but going by fast. Again, joining me in studio is Kamel Evans, the president of the Bermuda Netball Association. Kamel, you announced earlier that you guys were proactive after Humberto came through, and you pushed the season back to start now November 2nd.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
So you've added 2 weeks. So are you adding 2 weeks at the end, or are you going to try and make up games through midweek like you do when you have to during rain?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, obviously, we have until October 9th for teams to sign up and
Okay.
register. So once we have an idea of the amount of teams, and then we kick into high gear, making sure that we've got our scheduling done, make sure that, all of those things are in place. So it will really be determined by the amount of teams that we have sign up as to how long the season is going to flow. As we spoke previously, we amended the structure of our leagues, and that will happen only if we have the teams that
Right.
can accommodate it, and that will be under 11, under 14, and under 17. Obviously, we're not going to have a league if there's only two or three teams
Right.
or for that specific division. So, and with the addition now of the technical officials, it's going to determine how many matches, in particular with our seniors, that we will have playing in the evening. Previously, we've had 3 matches that take place with seniors, with the matches starting about 5:30ish and finishing, after 8.
Right.
So that's actually pretty long. I mean,
Mhm.
it's much longer for us that have junior teams in the league as
Right.
well, because the day starts at 1 o'clock. Well, the matches start at 1, the day starts at about 12.
Right.
So we're definitely pushing the envelope a bit. Each team, specifically with the seniors, will now have to provide a technical official as well as an umpire. So we're going to have to be extremely strategic in how we plan out our matches. It is our hope that we should still be able to finish on time, and that will be finished before the end of April, because then it allows for us to obviously get ready to start our summer league.
Yes.
So we'll know a lot more once we get
Registration
the
deadline.
registration deadline
Yeah.
has been met, and then we can inform you a bit more
Right.
as to how it's going to work.
As to November 2nd, strategically how you want it to play out, obviously you want the senior teams and the junior teams to gather parading,
Yes.
show that team unity from
Yes.
young to old,
Yes.
and then you'll start your competitions and then on with the rest of the day of netball,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken, because that's how you usually do it. But you used to do it
Yes.
separately. Bringing it together kind of helps the youngsters and the senior players, because now they get to interact with everyone,
Very much so.
which they probably don't even get a chance to see
Exactly. Very
because
much
they train
so.
different nights.
Very much so. I am a huge supporter of that's how you build longevity. As a senior player, you should more than want to have somebody that aspires to be like you. And we are encouraging our senior players to embrace this. That day may not be any matches involved on that day, but we have some super fun activities that's going to take place. With all the teams. It's not just going to be them parading by, but it's going to be a fantastic day of a new introduction of a shooting competition, a skills and drills competition. That committee is definitely working really, really hard. Danielle Reyna, she's back in the fold of the council, and she's a huge, she does a great job at organizing those types of things. So, it's gonna be fun. And for us, I think that's how you build the love of things, is when you can have fun doing something, then you eventually learn to love it. So, we will just continue to do those things, and hopefully we reap the rewards of it.
Well, I do want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. You got in a little early, and Ian, that's how you handle.
Thank you very much.
No complaints from the floor.
Not at all. Not at all.
Well, we'll be back after the news with more Inside Sports Talk Radio right here on Power 95.
95 FM with host Ian Rollins and co-host Earl Beeston. It's now time for our health and fitness segment with Dave Wolf, brought to you by the Argus Group and Fit for Life.
And welcome back to Inside Sports Talk Radio. Joining me now in the studio, two lovely ladies from Argus. Good afternoon, ladies. How are you?
Good afternoon.
She spoke. She spoke. Well, we're going to be talking a bit about vaping. It's been hitting the news of late, all throughout the U.S. It's a crisis going on.
Yes.
It's something that's already here in Bermuda.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen the extent level of what has taken place. People actually passing away from vaping, and it's an attraction for younger people to get involved in because they've got all these fruity colors, fruity tastes and so forth. So how does Argus get involved in something such as vaping, and how we can sort of manage it from an insurance healthy point of view?
Yeah, so again, my name is Shakira Warner, Population Health Specialist, and I'm here with Ms. Tamisha McNair, who assists with everything kind of related to marketing. So at Argus, we're really focused on prevention. So raising awareness about certain health issues or health concerns that we may be seeing on an international stage. And we know that, in Bermuda, we generally pick up the habits of our neighbors, our neighbors in the U.S. So we can basically say, okay, well, whatever's going on there, we need to just be a little bit more heightened and be more aware and adjust our behavior accordingly, so that we can actually learn from some of the challenges or successes that they may be experiencing over there. So we wanted to focus on vaping today because it is something that we've seen in the headlines, particularly this month. And some of you may be asking, what is the big deal about vaping? So over the summer, various public health alerts have reached the headlines in the U.S. Linking vaping, or also known as electronic cigarette use, to severe lung disease and damage. So this includes things you may have seen like collapsed lungs, as well as other things like popcorn lung, which you may have heard of. And it's particularly worrisome because, as you mentioned, we're seeing teenagers and young adults with advanced vaping-related lung disease. And these types of diseases you generally see kind of more, people who've been smoking for years and years and years. So it is quite concerning to see. And the result of that is you may have also seen kind of more recently in the news developments such as sales bans at major retailers such as Walmart. So Walmart saying we're not selling e-cigarettes, or we're not selling vape pens. And also states such as New York, the state of New York is saying, okay, all flavored electronic cigarettes are banned. And then one of the things that's had the most impact is you're seeing the people affected themselves doing grassroots posts on social media, kids, teenagers laid up in hospital beds with ventilators saying, this is what's happened to me. So that has been really effective in raising awareness about the issue. So in terms of what actually is vaping, vaping involves inhaling a vaporized liquid from an electronic device, kind of similarly to how you would smoke a traditional cigarette,
Right.
so inhaling and exhaling. The difference is that the liquid that you purchase in little cartridges is heated, but it's not burned, whereas like with a cigarette, traditional cigarette, it's burned. And I think there's been a lot of comparisons about what vaping compared to smoking those traditional cigarettes, and really what it comes down to is the known versus the unknown. We know, and we're very well educated in Bermuda. I think when we did the last steps to a Well Bermuda survey, we gauged that about 10% of the population are smokers. Still, in my opinion, a little too high, but not too bad. But I think there is the perception that vaping is a safer, quote unquote.
Well, that's how they first started to sell it.
Exactly.
They said it's a safer environment. You're not got the nicotine as harsh as it is in a cigarette. It could wean you off of cigarettes. It was sort of something when someone wanted to stop smoking, they'll use this and then eventually stop. However,
yes, and that was the hope. And I'm not sure if you remember, but a couple of years back, a bunch of doctors signed a document
Yes.
for the World Health Organization and said, hey, don't ban it, let's just wait, because it could be a safer alternative.
Right.
And that was the hope.
Right.
But what we found is that the reality
they
turned
made
into
candy.
something
They made
else.
candy.
Exactly. So the vaping industry has now become a multi-billion-dollar one. I think we can automatically think of brands. We can think of celebrities using vape pens, and even people who wouldn't necessarily start smoking cigarettes using vape pens. So we're talking pro athletes and things like that. People who take their health and well-being very seriously. So then that creates the aura of safety, like it's a safe way to smoke. But the kind of issue and where this becomes problematic is that there is limited regulation. And this becomes problematic in a few ways. There's so many different vendors, so many different products, so you really don't know what you're getting. And you made a remark earlier that people don't think that you're getting the same amount of nicotine, but really you have no idea what you're getting. So
they're just heard that's what you're getting.
Yes.
So they take it for granted.
Yes. So and you can think of it in this way, because we know that in a lot of cases in these vaping cartridges, nicotine is like kind of the number one ingredient that gives you that effect. But you don't know exactly how much nicotine is in that cartridge. And when you smoke a cigarette, it's kind of a managed quantity. It's a one cigarette. But you can sit around smoking a vape pen all day, and you can potentially get much more nicotine than you would get if you smoked a pack a day.
Hence why we have the results of people ending up in hospital, people passing away, and so forth.
Precisely. And with that issue of limited quality assurance, we've heard of vaping devices exploding. We've also heard of children or small pets getting a hold of the little cartridges and kind of thinking that it's candy or something edible. And one of the things that people need to remember is that nicotine, because it's the primary ingredient, it is highly addictive. Some e-cigarettes contain more nicotine, as I mentioned before, than what you would get in a pack. So you're sitting there smoking that all day. But in high concentrations of nicotine, nicotine is actually a poison. It's used in farming to kill off things that you don't really want around your produce. But nicotine in really high concentrations can elevate your risk of heart disease, so that's heart attack, stroke, etc. And also can cause seizures, and that's one of the kind of symptoms or illnesses that individuals have been experiencing that's kind of falling into the headlines is young people having seizures relating to the amount of nicotine that they're consuming in a day.
Ms. McNair, let me ask you this question, because if it's kind of tricky, because if Argus wanted to put together a promo of what the results can be from vaping, does it also stand a chance of a young person saying, well, let me try it?
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Because you know how when you put out messages that this is bad for you, or these can result in what can happen to you, people tend to say, well, let me see for myself.
Yeah, and I think it is kind of a marketing question, because one of the main responses to this public health, crisis, which is, let's call it what it is a public health crisis, is that there have been extremely aggressive anti-vaping campaigns. For example, the organization Truth, who we know used to do anti-smoking campaigns, they're now in the anti-vaping campaign. So you're seeing like these commercials with little puppets vaping, and we know the campaigns. So I think where marketing and communications come into play is making people aware of the risks, and then and as well as incorporating or working with policymakers to make it harder for young people to get access to those things. So that's where you've seen, like the state of New York doing the ban, Walmart saying that they're not selling anymore. So it's not just about, hammering, okay, you're going to get popcorn lung from smoking, from vaping, but also with the communication, raising awareness about the risks, and then putting it in a type of communication that is acceptable to that target group, and then also making it harder for them to get access to it.
Would it be your hope to have a conversation as far as, and it's something that I think all insurers should be looking at and ensuring that their customers, because that's who you deal with, your customers understand the risk of something such as this,
Yeah.
to have a talk with maybe government and the distributors in Bermuda
Yeah.
to ensure that something is put in place before it is too late.
Yes, and we have, had that conversation with employees and HR managers about, okay, well, how do we handle vaping in the workplace? Because it's popped up because people are like, oh, I can vape in here, I can vape at my desk because it's quote unquote safe.
Right.
And that's not necessarily, based on this discussion we've had, it's not necessarily true. And one of the kind of aspects of this as well is we know what the long-term and short-term health risks are for traditional cigarette smoking to the smoker themselves and the people around them. So what we don't want is to normalize smoking behavior again. So it took us, we've come a long ways since smoking on airplanes, smoking in workplaces, smoking around children. And when, children, young adults, people who can be influenced see, people out and about where they hadn't been able to smoke traditional cigarettes now vaping, then it makes it seem like it's normal and it's okay behavior. So what we say to, employees and employers is that, go back to your employee manual and include under smoking, include electronic cigarettes and vaping.
Right.
So treat it the exact same way that you would treat smoking cigarettes.
Yeah. Now, the numbers are staggering that you've seen over the time in the U.S. And I can't keep emphasizing enough, when will we sort of address the situation before we start seeing a percentage of what they have, because it's reality.
Yeah, I mean, because the vaping industry is still a new industry, and I think in Bermuda we still haven't quite. It's here, but it's not to the same degree as you would find in the States or the UK, etc. So we are lagging a little bit behind, but that's actually an opportunity for us to then go back and say, okay, what are we doing as employers? What are we doing as business owners? What are we doing, as policymakers to ensure that, vulnerable people have reduced access to this, and then also just making, reducing environmental hazards, because, if people start working or vaping in the workplace, then, that can trigger things like asthma attacks or, other issues. So it's just all about reducing harm.
Right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a commercial break, get your advertising spot in there, and when we come back, we'll continue this talk on vaping in the workplace or anywhere around Bermuda. And welcome back to Inside Sports Talk Radio. Again, joining me are ladies from Argus, and we're talking about vaping, which is something that is on our shores. It's a health risk that we've seen over and over again in the U.S. And obviously, we want to, from an insurance standpoint, Argus wants to make sure that their clients are aware of the risk and the challenges of one will face if they end up on the wrong side of this.
Yeah, and not just for our clients, just for Bermuda in general. I with public health, we all benefit if everyone hears the message and people can take actionable steps. So we're not just focused on Argus insured members, but we hope that this message can carry forth, to the rest of Bermuda. And it's funny when we in our little advertisement, we talk about the bottom line.
Mhm.
You know, our interest is you. We really do care about our members. We really do want them to, you know, be in a position where they have the facts and that they can make educated decisions about how they want to, you know, lead their lives so that they can be happy and live their best life. So that's kind of the perspective that we're coming from. And one of the key drive home messages for this about vaping is that if you don't smoke or if you don't vape, don't start. Just period. Just don't
Right.
start. It's very addictive. It is just, you know, people who you know, I've spoken to who have been, you know, smoking cigarettes or using, you know, tobacco products. It's very hard to quit. You know, you're ball and chain to that for for a while, and it can be difficult to shake that.
Right.
And if you do already smoke or if you do already vape, you know, we strongly encourage you to use the resources available to help you quit. We understand that it is no easy feat. It is going to take work and it is going to take support. So embedded in our health plans, we do give our members access to resources. And of course, this is for anybody out there, even if you're a non-Argus client. You know, there are resources out there that can assist you. So, for example, Pathways Bermuda is an excellent partner of ours. They are known, you know, in the addiction and recovery space. Remember, smoking tobacco or vaping and using nicotine products is an addiction. So, and there are very real physical and emotional withdrawal systems that come from breaking that habit. So, Pathways is an excellent partner, and they have the support of a program in place that can help you through that journey. And that's something that we provide coverage for. So just wanted to give a shout out to the Pathways team and the work that they do. Also, you know, talk to your doctor. You know, if you're trying to quit smoking or if you're trying to quit vaping, there are other FDA-approved prescription options for you. So, for example, the nicotine patch or the nicotine gums, products where it's actually regulated. You know what's in them, you know exactly how much nicotine is in them, and you can then kind of reduce that amount so that you can wean yourself off and limit the physical and emotional effects of the withdrawal. And of course, if you have any questions about the programs and services that we offer, or even if you just need some advice in connecting you to resources, we encourage you to, you know, give me a call at 298-0888. Or alternatively, you can email me at thrive@argus.bm. And if you have any questions about, you know, just how do you even start? How do you even start to quit? We can assist you and just direct you and help you navigate.
Because that's very important.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know where to start.
Yeah. And, you know, cold turkey works for some people.
Yeah.
Cold turkey doesn't work for most. So, you know, just making sure that you have the support in place so that you can kind of start that journey. That's very important to us. So again, want to drive home the bottom line. If you don't smoke or vape, do not start. If you do smoke or vape currently, we do have resources in place for you to assist you in that journey to quitting.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you both very much. I'm not sure if I'm well liked right now.
Of course you are.
But we look forward to speaking with you again in 2 weeks' time, and very interesting topics we come up with especially with health and what you guys can offer, as well as other businesses that can take that advice on for their staff and, you know, themselves, you know, to help them through. So
yes, and you know, of course, we thank Parnelly 5, and Mr. Bassett for this opportunity again. We can't wait for next time.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll be back with more Inside Sports Talk Radio after this message.
Inside Sports Talk Radio on Power 95 FM with host Ian Rollins and co-host Earl Baston.
Welcome back to Inside Sports Talk Radio on this Monday, September the 30th, the final day of the month. The year is rolling on. Joining me now in studio is the national head coach of swimming in Bermuda, Ben Smith.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. And yourself?
Pretty good.
Ben, I wanted to talk to you about this upcoming season, and obviously it's a very important year season for swimming, as we have, it's an Olympic year. But let's first talk about the local-based stuff. When does the season get underway locally for our swimmers here?
So the first local competition will be on Saturday the 10th.
Okay.
That will be the Shark Sprint Championship. That will be the kickoff for the season. Everybody's been back in the water training since the end of August, so this will be the first test to see kind of where everybody has been, shaking off a little bit of the rust from the summer when they potentially went on a little bit of a break.
Right.
And then we'll be seeing, what the performance is going to look like.
Is it important, especially the first meet, just to look at times to see where people are at, as opposed to trying to win everything, because it's a long season?
Yeah, it's a really long season. So really, at this early stage, it's about having fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no one's going to be at their peak performance at this competition. What you'd be looking for is whether they are doing the skills, right? So what does the stroke look like at this point? And it's also an opportunity to maybe get your eyes on some up-and-coming people, someone that maybe has had a growth spurt over the summer and maybe is looking a little bit different than they did at the end of last season. So in the early season meet, it's really fun and enjoyment, and hopefully somebody's going to swim fast.
This is where you get a lot of DQs because of that stroke issue early in the season, isn't it?
Potentially, yes. And then some of the younger swimmers that are going to be stepping up to their first meet, where they're learning, all the different whistles and what the referee's going to be looking for, and maybe they messed up a turn. So it's learning time, right? This is the opportunity for us to have them compete, but then this is when the coaches get an opportunity to say to them, okay, this is what you did well, this is what you can work on, and then we're building the season from this point forward.
Last year you started a program up at Work Academy.
Yes.
And we saw the results go through the roof with the swimmers you had. How does one improve on that and introduce new students to that program? Because what you were able to do with those athletes, I'm pretty sure you surprised yourself how far and how fast they were able to go in such a short period of time. But then if somebody new comes on, it's kind of, you got to get them up to speed.
Well, I mean, really, the main focus of creating that kind of program was so that we could kind of put the swimmer athlete student all together, right? So really what we were looking for was the opportunity to see if we could get some university scholarships out of having that kind of program, because it was connected to a school. It allowed us to travel and compete as a school, which then obviously brought in scouts. And, lo and behold, you end up with Jesse Washington at SMU coming out of that program. Well, since then, we've had two other swimmers that have graduated. One is going to be swimming at Dalhousie, and one is in the process of looking to make a specific team in England. So graduating swimmers out of the program that are now going to be going to university was the goal. So we brought in some youngsters in this September. Because as it happens, right, you're going to have people that are going to graduate. Right. You've got to bring the next group in. That next group is hungry because they've seen what the ones ahead of them have been able to achieve. So, so far, it's those 5 mornings a week where they're training extremely hard, and the strength and conditioning coming from EPEX physiotherapy. All of that together, we're hoping that we'll continue to see the growth in the program.
It benefits because you have in that program not only your swimmers and national swimmers, but from various clubs around. That helps to give those other coaches an opportunity to see their athletes grow when they come back to them for training in the evening, as opposed to, they're not with them and not seeing them all the time. Would you say that that the program itself, if able to expand upon, would be a perfect fit for other schools?
I do, and really, what I've seen from this program is giving me the thought that potentially we should be looking at it in other sports as well. So I know that Work Academy has expanded, and some of the strength and conditioning program has actually gone into other sports, and they've now, identified other coaches that they could bring in for specific sports. When we first looked at it, we thought that it was something that would really work well for individual sports, just because it's that quick ability to kind of do the program, potentially go off site to train if you don't have the facilities at the school. But it's interesting. I know that you were at the sports conference, and there was a young person that asked a question specifically about maybe some kind of academy for Bermuda.
Right.
I thought about that question, and part of it is when you make a choice to be an athlete, right? So you've separated yourself from your peers because sometimes on the Friday night when everyone else is going to go to a party, you've made a decision because I got to get up early the next day. I've got, it's the positive track that really we want all of our young people to be making. And I think that question was a bit of those young people saying, if we had others that were on the same page as us,
around us all the time.
Now we're feeding off each other, right? And now that strength and conditioning potentially goes across more of them, and now they're competing against each other, and now everybody gets better. I think there's the merit in it, and probably something that we should discuss a little further.
I agree to the extent that we need somewhere for the elite or those that want to be elite, because they have to be in that environment amongst themselves, eating, sleeping, drinking, all the same, getting the same nutrients and the training.
Most definitely.
Along with the schoolwork, because that is also vital, because eventually they're going to have to graduate. They're looking to go to college or university, or move into a professional life in their sport. But how far are we away from having that conversation? The conversation, because after the conversation has to be action. You can't just say, well, let's put this on the shelf.
Well, that was the part that was interesting when I had the conversation with Dave Horn from Work Academy, is that we had an initial conversation, and then he said, let's have a meeting. And right from the meeting, we turned into a plan, and the plan turned into a program that is happening. Really, that's the way you have to move. You have to have somebody that sees the vision and says, this is something that's important for us to figure out a way to have our athletes, students, aim at a goal and really try to achieve it. Because I do believe that having an opportunity for them to feed off each other and be around each other, because they've already made a decision that they want to be good. Doesn't matter what the sport is, they've already made that decision. Well, being around other like-minded individuals that have made the positive decision to move in that direction can only help them. This weekend on Saturday morning, I was on the beach with a group of swimmers training. And at the same time, Pacers was on the beach training. And the week before, PHC was on the beach training. And what you see is that opportunity for multiple sports doing very similar things, that you're feeding off these positive kids that can really move forward. And you've got coaches that are putting in this time and effort. When you listen to the panel that was together, with Sean Goder, and they were speaking specifically to what we have in Bermuda already. We already have programs set up. We already have people that are skilled enough to take our athletes to a certain level. What they talked about was that last part where potentially now you have to go overseas and push yourself against the very best. But it's potentially what we need to do before that, right? This piece where we get these guys all together and give them the opportunity to drive each other.
Right. Which is a real important key, because if you're not driven or if you're not challenged at home, you sort of dwindle away when you get up to that.
You do. So all sports locally, 13, 14, 15, we're going to start to see, our athletes move in a different direction, because the bike comes involved, and they got boyfriends and girlfriends, and maybe they got to take up a job, and it's all those different pieces that happen. Having the knowledge that you're not the only one, right? Because that's what happens, right? So now as different people drop out of the sport, the young man that said that he had friends that were saying, oh, well, now it's boring and whatever else, because the draw in the other direction seems more exciting.
Right.
They can't see what it's going to be like when they're 22,
Right.
23, right? But if you have that group that's feeding off each other, that are having that positive energy, that's what's going to get them there.
Internationally, every year we have the Carifta Swimming Championships. We have CCCAN. You've taken this school to 3 meets last year.
2 meets last
2 meets last year. The opportunity to swim against different people is always that carrot, I would say, because I compete against Ben every week or every other week, and I know I can beat him. So, what is my drive now? How do you work that in? Because the person still has to be pushed.
Yes.
And sometimes the best person don't want to be pushed anymore because I'm already best.
And that is always the difficulty in Bermuda, right? So you reach the top of the pyramid early, right? I'll give Jesse Washington as an example. So, when Jesse reached 12 years old, he was already in a position where it was Roy and then him when it came to freestyle pushing at that next level. But then it becomes the clock, right? When I was a swimmer a really long time ago, and we didn't have internet, and so now you don't have the ability to see who your competition is. Well, now you do. So every weekend, any result all over the world is available to you. So now you know what you're pushing against on the clock. As an individual sport, that's where the battle's going to come.
Right.
Because even when you're racing against somebody, it's the clock that you're actually racing. Did I get faster incrementally, right? Was I able to drop a tenth of a second, a hundredth of a second? Because that's what's going to move you up in the rankings worldwide or in our region or nationally or in your club. At each of those levels, that's the piece that you really have to put in front of them because that's the carrot.
Right. Do we swim better at indoor facilities or outdoor? I know we swim here in Bermuda outdoor. A lot of the competitions we go to in the region are outdoor. When we go to major competitions, it's indoor, and I don't know if we get the same result under those conditions.
It's actually an interesting thought, right? So I will tell you that because of the makeup of our season and how it works, a lot of times I'm going to tell you that as the weather gets better, our swimmers start to perform better. And then, of course, we're going to go to a regional competition where the weather is going to be better than Bermuda, right? So the sun's out, they feel that energy of better weather, and they're going to swim faster. So then when you go to facilities outside of that, right, so any world championships, any university, any school competition is going to be in an indoor facility. Usually not a lot of windows, so you don't actually see anything but the black line and the chlorine levels in the facility are going to be different. It is different. But what happens is most of the time when you get to that next level, you will have spent some time training in that kind of facility. So they get used to it. And it's really just repetition, right? As you get the experience of being against competition in that kind of pool, you're going to get better at it.
You had a chance to reflect on Maddie Moore and Jesse's performances in Lima. Just technical mistakes that they were making, wasn't it?
Yes. So obviously it's always difficult, right? When you go away to university and you have a new environment, you're dealing with school and all the different, just moving from wherever your comfort zone is, you've gone to a different situation, new coaches, new program, and then you're with that, they have their school responsibility when it comes to swimming. And the U.S. school system is going to usually line them up to be finished around the end of February, middle of March. And then they've got to press reset, and it's a completely different mindset. Now you're doing it for country. Well, that's great if school is lined up with country. If not, sometimes they're going to have to figure some of those things out on their own. And then when you get to that level of competition, we do a training camp, and we try to get them, focused on the details that we need, but it's a short period of time to try to get that right. And then when you get to the competition under the highest pressure that you possibly can have, that's when you're going to see those errors. But all you can do is learn from it. They're both young athletes, We get to the competition. They did well. They didn't do the level that they wanted to, but obviously we learned because we had just spent 13 hours on a flight coming from Korea, right? So that was a huge learning experience for them for this summer that hopefully they've taken back to university and they're going to put into what they're doing in their training there that is going to lead to the performances that we need.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with National Head Coach of Swimming, Ben Smith.
Sports Talk Radio has been Inside Sports Talk Radio. Inside Sports Talk Radio with Power 95 FM with host Ian Rollins and co-host Earl Baston.
And welcome back to Inside Sports Talk Radio on this Monday, September 30th. Again, joining me in the studio is the head coach, national head coach of swimming, Ben Smith. Ben, as we talked at the beginning about a big year, obviously it's an Olympic year. Have the standards been set?
Yes, the standards for the Olympics came out earlier this year.
Okay.
So the qualifying period started in May of 2019 and will run through June 2020.
Is our pool here, the 50-meter pool, deemed I know there was some talk before, a qualifying standard pool?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we will be putting an application in shortly that will make our national championships, which is going to be held in May, as a qualifier for the Olympics. So potentially we'll attract people from overseas that will come in to try to qualify. And we'll also be looking, hopefully, to get some of our guys back because if you remember at the last Olympics, that's where they qualified.
Right. We'll make sure that the female swim if the females and the male swim if the...
Yes. we will make sure.
If anybody remembers that day, oh boy.
Yes.
But the way these times are going, and we see it not just in swimming, but in track and field and in all these events, they're making the standard higher and higher. But I don't know if anyone's taken into consideration that some of these people that are caught cheating are doing the times, and then you're banning them but still leaving the time, which is obviously the big issue. How is that being managed to make sure that it's done right, done correctly, that you don't eliminate too many people because someone who cheated set your bar?
But the hardest part is that a lot of the standards are going to be driven by the big countries.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
they're the ones that are pushing the standards in that direction because they start with a bigger pool of athletes.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that bigger pool of athletes, with all the other advantages that they get with the financing and with the just genetic pool, meaning that they're going to probably pick the taller, faster, stronger
Right.
person out of their pool of athletes. Then potentially you've got the cheating that goes along with that. And just because somebody gets caught doesn't mean that there weren't 12 other people in the event
Right.
that were also cheating.
Yeah.
They just had better access to better drugs, so
Right.
they weren't getting caught.
Right.
You know, if you look at a lot of the highest profile cases of drug use, right? You look at Lance Armstrong, Alex Rodriguez, Barry Bonds. They didn't get caught, right? They were caught up in really in admin.
Right.
They didn't get caught with the actual failing a test.
Right. Right.
And then they tell you the details of what they were able to accomplish. So we don't know, right? So, you know, in some of the big countries where there's the potential that this has happened, the problem that I always look at is if you say that 3 people in the top 15 were cheating, if the third person, or let's say the gold medalist was a cheater, so then everybody always talks about, okay, so now second place moves to first place, third place moves up to second place, fourth place moves up to third, and then we stop talking.
Right.
But no one thought about the fact that there was somebody at that Olympics that came 17th that should have come 16th,
right?
Which would have meant that they got a second chance to swim,
yes.
or run, or whatever
Right.
it is. And the problem with that is, let's say you're from a small country. That's the difference between funding, no funding. That's the difference between you continuing to do the sport and not continuing to do the sport.
Well, that happened to Arantxa King.
Yes.
She missed out, didn't qualify. 2 people, since which, have been found guilty, and it took away her spot in a final. It took away, as you said, her spot opportunity to have a couple more jumps, and possibly doing much better. Opportunity for sponsorship, opportunity.
And just the perception, right? So the perception of her being, not able to achieve comes from the population, because, we always want our athletes to achieve the best.
Yes.
So in that context, she's looked at it in a completely different light than she should have. 2 people got caught. What if there was 4 of them?
Right.
Where was she supposed to be?
Right.
Right. But that very rarely is part of the conversation. The conversation is always about the people on the top and how they suffered because they didn't get a medal.
Well, when we look at standards, and obviously that's always going to be an issue about, especially about the cheating part, and people trying to be faster and better and using whatever methods they can to do that. What is the talk, especially, okay, let's talk about this region. What is the talk amongst the coaches and associations in our region in addressing, educating the athlete on the importance of clean, of being naturally fast?
So what I will tell you is that is the message at all times, right? So from a Bermuda perspective, ASADA does an amazing job of having the testing program. So our athletes are going to be in a university with other athletes that are going to be competing from other countries around the world, and our athletes get tested more than them, right? When we had Roy Julian and Rebecca Halliger, they were in programs with world champions, Olympic champions, medalists, and they were getting tested more than them. So already, because of our size, it means that we're going to more likely get tested. So from that standpoint, we're already ahead there. We communicate it all the time with the athletes, but it has to be difficult, right? At some point, you say, well, I'm doing everything that I'm being asked to do. I'm training as hard as I can. I'm sacrificing all the things that everybody else is sacrificing, but I'm not making that final jump. But really, from a Bermuda standpoint, are you going to get any sponsorship out of it? It's not worth it. Right. So now you've actually affected your health for something that really wasn't going to take you. A lot of times the drug cheats are the ones that have already achieved, and now they're trying to go to that very next level. But when you were talking about the standards, so I think we've done a really good job of challenging our athletes and pushing them to get to that next level, and that's why we've seen the results in our region. But in being at that conference, there's a lot on this long-term athlete development. It's talking about the bigger pool. It's something that has a lot of merit and something that we have to look at, right? Because at the same time that Jesse was performing as he was, part of that was that he developed at an early enough stage to make that jump. So then he gets more focus than potentially the other people that he was competing against locally. And then they leave the sport, right? So a lot of times, are we leaving some of our talent because they didn't quite get there? So we have to figure out a way to make sure that we are giving everybody that opportunity. Maybe it's going to a different competition. Maybe it's just making it fun across the board. And that's why my message earlier was that the first meet's going to be about fun, because really that's the direction that we have to move.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for your time. We've actually come up to our critting hour. I want to thank you for your time, but we'll be in touch more about things that's happening with swimming, because it's going to be a bumper year. There's rugby colleges, and obviously we're keeping an eye on the dailies as well. And,
most definitely.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you again.
Thank you.
Don Bassett, thank you very much.
Anytime.
Folks, do enjoy the rest of your day. Inside Sports Talk Radio.
Thank you for joining Inside Sports Talk.